Okay.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Evening from Luke. Good stuff. Thanks, Luke. Evening to you too. So like normal, if this is your first webinar, then you'll see something different. There's a Q&A button at the bottom, which you don't normally have on a normal Zoom meeting. So if there's any questions that you've got during this evening, then do just write them in there and we will try and get through as many as we can. Steve.
Yeah, good stuff. As always, I'm going to introduce our guest and kind of explain when we first met and where and how we know each other. A bit of a familiar theme because we've had Paul Ashworth and Gaffer Morlin on last week, Terry, and we were talking the week, Tell, about how many of us from that first Peterborough United team of coaches are still in the game. Yeah. And I remember working with you when I was at Peterborough United. You came to you were at the club. I remember having a few minibus journeys somewhere, you know, and a bit of banter flying around, and we've just kind of kept in touch, haven't we? And obviously, with my role in the FA, and you working for the FA in some capacity, then we've just always kind of kept in touch. So we're going to go through. I've put a few slides together just to show people your journey, Terry. Could you kind of talk us through a little bit? Where is it? There we go. Your journey and what you're doing now, my man.
Brilliant. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking your time out to watch and listen in. Yeah, I'm not going to go on for too long because ultimately I want to kind of answer your questions and obviously I know Steve's got a few questions for me as well, but yeah, I'll briefly just run through it. Yeah, first of all, Steve mentioned there about the team of coaches back in probably the late 90s. It was incredible looking back. That was my first kind of opportunity at a professional club. I was only young myself. Without giving away my age, I was 18, 19, around that type of age when the head of the academy at the time at Peterborough United said to me, look, you know, you used to be a goalkeeper. I was still playing non-league, but I wasn't playing in the professional game anymore. And he asked me if I wanted to be head of the goalkeepers at the academy, which was my first role coaching. And it was literally, there's a bag of footballs, there's a stack of cones, off you go, which in hindsight was amazing really, because I literally completely learned on the job. And it was completely up to me how I wanted to do it, how I wanted to design the syllabus, how I wanted to split the goalkeepers into different ages. So yeah, 19, being given that opportunity, and I felt confident enough. I mean, looking back at some of my sessions, they would have been, you know, horrendous. You know, I remember the first ever goalkeeping session I'd done. This wasn't at Peterborough actually. I did a football in the community goalkeeping session. I was 16, 17, and John Morlin was the head of that at the time. So it was Peterborough United Football in the Community, and he said to me, "Oh, you've got." I think he stitched me right up. He gave me about 25 young goalies, and I'm 17 years old. This was in the late 90s. You wouldn't be able to do that now. And he said, "Oh, you know, coach them for 5 hours on a football course." I was like, "Wow, okay, yeah, no problem." And I remember I'm going to apologise in advance because it was the worst session of it. I can't believe I delivered it actually. There was 2 lines of about 12, 13 kids. They got to the front of the queue. I threw them a ball. They threw it back to me. They went to the back of the queue. And I was 17, so don't judge me too much. But that was the first ever session I did. And I remember John Morlin coming over to me and saying, "Oh, Terry, just try and avoid queues if you can." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." Just thought what I was doing was great. I was having a good time. They seemed like they're having a good time. But in hindsight, that's where it all began, really. So yeah, Peterborough United, they obviously didn't see that session when they gave me the head of the academy job. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got the job. But yeah, I just started out on my qualifications at that age, 18, 19. And then, yeah, that was a great opportunity for me, really. And I ran with it.
Just on the Peterborough thing, I think you'd agree that looking back, that they were a club, certainly an academy, who gave young people, an opportunity, didn't they? They really did. You know, to think that I was running the under-9s with somebody at I think I'm only a couple of years older than you, I think.
Yeah.
It's incredible, really, looking back.
Yeah, I think what they used to do at Peterborough is they had like a real culture of employing the right type of people. You know, people that were going to be really reliable, people that were going to be professional, people that were going to put the time and effort in for obviously very little money. You know, I don't mind sharing it. The first season, head of the goalkeeping academy. It was a part-time role, so it was a couple of nights a week, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. I got 500 quid. I actually remember getting the check for 500 quid from the club, and I went and bought a DVD player for 499 quid.
Oh, wow.
Because they'd just come out. So, I mean, I am really showing my age here, so I do apologize. But yeah, it's crazy to think that they were giving young people an opportunity and a chance. You know, at the time, I think I was working towards my level 2 goalkeeping or level 1 goalkeeping. So, you know, in hindsight, I probably didn't have the correct qualifications for that role, but it didn't seem to matter so much in the 90s. But yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, they gave me that chance, and as I said, I rolled with it, went with it. I used to coach the goalkeepers. I think one night in the week, a Saturday morning, go and warm the goalkeepers up on a Sunday morning, watch the games, give feedback to the keepers at the end of the game, and then on the other nights, I would go out because Dan Ashworth, he was the under-9s manager at the time. I'd go out and I'd watch him, and I assisted him for a bit, and yourself and Luke Hobbs, and yeah, I was just really hungry for it. It's funny because even when I was a scholar at Cambridge United as a goalkeeper, but even when I was a scholar, I used to finish training early and go and work in their football in the community. I just always wanted to be a coach. Well, probably from the age of sort of 16, 17, thought, I loved playing, I enjoyed it, but I just wanted to coach. All my family are teachers, so I've got 3 sisters, they're all teachers, so I think there's something in that.
In the blood. It's in the blood.
Yeah, it must be, in the DNA. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. But yeah, definitely going back to your point there, they used to give a lot of young people a chance and an opportunity, and hence why they've all gone on, I think, and done so well.
So do you remember a young goalkeeper called Eli Frankham?
Yeah, I do.
Eli went on to become a very good amateur boxer. He stopped playing in goal, but very good boxer. Yeah, I keep in touch with Eli.
He was an under 11 goalkeeper at Cambridge.
Right. I thought he'd worked with him.
He was probably about 5'5" then.
He was a big boy. His dad was a big lad. Some of the people on the call will know Eli, and his old man was a big bloke as well. How long were you? I remember. Sorry, go on, mate.
No, I remember because I always try and, when I've worked with somebody or worked with a player, I always try and follow their sort of journey, whether it's in the game or out of the game. And I remember hearing that he was a really good boxer.
Very good, yeah.
I'm not sure, obviously, what he went on to achieve, but
stay on the right side of him. Stay on the right side of Eli.
Yeah, I mean,
how long were you at Peterborough? How long were you at Peterborough?
Well, I've actually had 2 spells at Peterborough.
Right.
So the first spell when I was 19, I think I was there for about 3 years, 3 seasons. And that really was my apprenticeship of coaching. I had lots of support from people around me, but I was pretty much left to my own devices, which was, as I said, in hindsight, probably the best way to work. So yeah, I was there for 3 years, and then when I was head of goalkeeping, still am head of academy goalkeeping at Southend. I also last season, the season before that, and the season before that, I was head of goalkeeping at Peterborough again. So I went back there for another spell for 2.5 seasons. So yeah, in total, I've probably done 6 seasons at Posh.
Right. Okay. But we'll flick through some of these, mate, because I want to get the question. So we'll talk about your Arsenal role in a bit. But if we could, before I start with the questions, just to give us insight into your role with the FA, because the concept of tonight is the fact that you work with grassroots goalkeepers and international goalkeepers. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've got my own goalkeeping academy, as you know. I've got centres in Southend, Cambridge and Peterborough. And I'm at 90% of them sessions coaching. So I'm not just the name of it and get people running. I actually go there and deliver the sessions on a weekly basis. So on a weekly basis, I'm working with grassroots keepers from the age of 7 years old up until 15, 16, sometimes a little bit older than that. And at the same time, I'm a consultant for the FA, which I've been doing now for 5 years, which has been great. I've had some great experiences working with the under 15s men, 16s men, 17s men, 18s men, which I'm currently doing.
Brilliant.
And as I was just saying before we started, I've done a camp recently with the women's under 19s, which was a good experience. So I'm not full time. I'm a consultant there, but I've had plenty of experience at the FA, which has been fantastic, to be honest.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, I'm going to start with the questions. I'll put on my phone tonight. I've gone IT. So, number one, Terry, how do you feel the role of the goalkeeper has evolved and developed over the last 20 years? And probably as importantly, how has this changed the way you have coached, both in terms of practices used and your style? Bearing in mind, I wrote this before you told me about your 2 Qs. So, genuinely, hopefully your style has been adapted over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's so important as a coach that you adapt as the game evolves, but also as well, you want to try and be one step ahead if you can. So you want to try and predict where the game's going. And it's difficult to do, but the game's got quicker and it's only going to get quicker, in my opinion. It's not going to get slower. The goalkeepers are involved in the build-up phase more and more. So the demands and the profile of the keeper, it's not like it was 20 years ago where they had to be outstanding out of possession, but in possession, they didn't have to be so good. Obviously now they have to be. So I think your sessions, your practices have to reflect the current game. And also when you're working with young people, by the time a 12-year-old's 22, that's 10 years time, you've got to make sure that you've prepared them for the game that they're going to play in 10 years time. So as I said, the game's going to get quicker. The role of the goalkeeper is all about the input, not all about, but as important in possession as what it is out of possession. So yeah, to answer the question, I would say that's the major thing, making sure you're adapting your practices to meet the demands of the game. And as the game's evolved, hopefully the practices have evolved as well.
What about you, your style, Terry, your personal style? Has it changed over the years, or are you still the Terry Mason coach that you were when you started?
It's a good question. I think first and foremost, I think I'm the same coach as what I was 20 years ago in terms of the importance of the relationship that you form with the players you work with. I don't want to name drop, but Phil Brown said to me when I first started working for Phil Brown, he said, "You like getting really close to the goalkeepers, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I like to get close enough to influence them, but not so close that it blurs my decision making on them." So it's a really fine line. It's a difficult line because I think when I was younger, you're passionate about what you do. You put in a lot of time and effort. And sometimes when they get criticised, you can take that personally yourself. I think, it hurts. It's a really delicate balance because if you're that type of person, you really genuinely care about what you're doing and care about the people you're working with, to kind of stay and keep that line that you don't cross is quite difficult. But I think to answer your question, I think I'm the same person as what I was 20 years ago in terms of wanting to form those relationships with the players. But I think I've learned to not get personally involved too much in taking criticism of them personally.
It must be. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes, and if I'm coaching or managing on match day, then you've got 10 outfield players. It must be like watching your son or daughter play almost, because if they make a mistake, it's an impact on you, but you must sort of really catch every ball with them, don't you? I would think.
Yeah, I think it's a skill to not get to that level and be kind of, I don't know what the word is, but just try and take a step back and not be so emotionally attached and emotionally involved, but it's not easy, because you might, for instance, be working with a goalkeeper for 7 or 8 years, and now you've seen them go from a 15-year-old boy, now they're a 20, 21-year-old man who's playing in front of, you know, for instance, at Wembley with Bentley in front of 30,000 people, and you've had such a journey with that person, and you've formed such a relationship with that person, that sometimes, you know, you do get involved. But I think the key is to kind of to stay calm and not do that. You can still have that relationship, but you have to, yeah, it's a difficult balance for me, especially because, you know, I am passionate about what I do and I love what I do. So
you just mentioned Dan Bentley's, obviously with Bristol City. There'll be a few Bristol City fans on today. I can safely say, Terry, that he is Bristol City's best player at the moment. So you've done a good job working with him. I'm not sure what that says about the rest of the team at the moment, but Libby,
yeah, no, Dan's a lovely lad. I stay in touch with Dan. I mean, we worked together for a long time, and there's a lot of people at Southend that had an influence on him. So no, by no means was it just me. I mean, we first met. He was 15 years old when he signed for Southend. He was at Arsenal's academy. They decided not to offer him a scholarship at Arsenal at the time. Went with a different boy. He came to Southend. He had a few clubs, few options. Then he came to Southend, and you're talking about forming that relationship. I went out and we did a session together. We went back in. I met his mum. Straight away, he was raw then, very raw technically. He was still a boy, really. You know, he's 6'3", 6'4" now, but he was probably, you know, just under 6 foot at the time. So he hadn't really even gone through that huge growth spurt. He's a July birthday as well.
Right. So
that's always one to be aware of. Summer-born boys, sometimes they can be a little bit further behind, even under 16 level. And I sat down with him and his mum. I thought straight away, there's something to work with here. He's a really nice kid and just came across really well. You know, and I remember saying, you know, me and Dan laugh about it now, but I remember saying to his mum and Dan at the time, you know, training grounds don't produce players, people do. And if anyone's ever been to Southend United's training ground, they know what I mean. Because the ceiling's leaking. Yeah, boots and laces. It's, you know, it's not a great facility by any means. But it's some really good people there. And obviously those people had an impact on him.
Brilliant. Libby, we've got a couple of questions, haven't we?
We have. I was personally going to ask about this Arsenal role, which we haven't mentioned yet. What was that, and what would you get up to?
Yeah, so the Arsenal role was talent ID. So one thing they've highlighted at the club is they want to make sure that they are having somebody out there watching games, somebody aware of the best young goalkeepers that are around, and they wanted to bring in somebody from a goalkeeping coaching background rather than just a scouts background. So I started the role only a few months ago. I started the role, and then we went into second or third lockdown. So it's been quite difficult to get out and watch games. But yeah, I'm going to be out there watching games, linking it in with my academy as well. If there's any talented keepers in the academy, to link that in with them, and doing reports on goalkeepers, and also looking at the kind of the Cat 3, Cat 4 market as well. Who are the best young goalkeepers in those category academies, and seeing if we can unearth the next, you know, talent that is around. And also as well, being aware of that sort of 17, 18-year-old boy that maybe is a late developer, maybe has gone out like a Nick Pope, who's gone out and played men's football at a young age, and maybe is a little bit of a late bloomer, and just to be aware of those boys as well. So that's a good role. It's, as I said, it's only just started, so it's one I'm looking forward to really getting my teeth into.
So what do you look for then? If it's you know, if there's late bloomers and stuff, what is it specifically that you're looking for? Yeah,
so it's quite similar to England, really. You know, to play for Arsenal, to play for England, it's not enough just to be really good out of possession. You have to be equally as good in possession, because the way and the style of the team. So a lot of the time, Arsenal and England, they'll build from the back. So the goalkeeper will be really involved in the building phase. So his range of passing is so important. His decision making on the ball in possession is very important. So you're not looking for the finished article by any means, especially when they're young boys, but you're just looking for the ones that can move, they're at ease with their body. And yeah, I try and use like quite a simple example that somebody should come and watch a session, and if the goalkeeper was training with the outfield players, they wouldn't be able to know which one the goalkeeper is in terms of their ability on the ball. And that's how good goalkeepers now have to be in possession. They have to be as good as the outfield players, if not better sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for. Yeah, somebody who shows that ability in and out of possession, really. And all the other things as well, playing with personality, belief, you know, all those things that if you want to play at the top and you want to get to the top, you've got to have that or show signs of that as well.
Good stuff. Yeah, there are a few questions coming through.
Yeah, fire away.
This is from Martin. To work in goalkeeping, as like full time, is it more realistic for it to happen abroad rather than here in the UK?
I don't think so. No, I think there's a lot of opportunities in this country. There are obviously a lot of opportunities abroad as well, but if you think about it, most Cat 1s now, so top academies in the country, will probably have 3 or 4 full-time goalkeeping coaches, where 20 years ago, you know, Steve was saying how it's developed, it would probably be a part-time goalkeeping coach, maybe a full-time goalkeeping coach at a club. Now with the under 18s, under 23s, first team, maybe a head of goalkeeping as well, overseeing the whole department. You know, you can have 3 or 4 full-time members of staff in the top clubs, and even in the Cat 2s, the Cat 3s, you're still looking at, you know, 1 or 2 full-time members of staff. So I think there's lots of opportunities out there for people, but it takes a long time to be full-time at a club. For me, it takes a hell of a lot of dedication and hours and training and getting it wrong and going from your lines of 13 kids catching a ball and going to the back of the line all the way through. It's took me 21 years now of coaching. So I'm giving away my age there, 21 years of coaching to really get a grasp of it. I'm still learning now, so.
Good stuff. Yeah, there's another one from Connor. He says, Terry, get your glass ball out. So look into the future. 10. The biggest changes for goalkeepers will be in 10 years. Obviously, you mentioned the speed of play. But then what do you think we as coaches should be focusing on to prepare goalkeepers for 10 years' time?
So I'm really strong on this, actually. And I don't know if it's going to come true or not. Well, only time will tell. But I think the goalkeeper stepping out of his goal in controlled possession, say, for instance, you play with a back 4. If you're in controlled possession, the goalkeeper stepping in to become one of those back 4 or a back 5, and then the impact that has on the player that frees up to make overloads in the middle of the park or up front. So it's something we do at England at the FA. It's something I really encourage. And going back to your question there, Libby, about the talent ID and spotting what we're looking for in the profiling, goalkeepers that are just as comfortable as outfield players. And you've got to pick your times. You've got to know when to join in and step into the back 4 or the back 5. But I think that will be the biggest evolution of goalkeeping in a long time. If you look at, and I sort of try and explain it to people, you look at the role of the fullback, how that's changed. So 20 years ago, Gary Neville never really went beyond the halfway line. If he did, you know, he'd link up with Beckham or whatever it was. But now fullbacks are expected to bomb on countless times in a game, come into midfield, centre halves are driving out with the ball. I know they've been doing that for a long time. You know, Harry Kane dropping deep and becoming a number 10. I know that, again, that's been that's been part of the game for a long time now. But these are all ways the positions are evolving, and I honestly believe the goalkeeper's biggest evolution will be that he steps in controlled possession. And obviously then the chance of transition, you've left your goal, you're going to have to be a brilliant reader of the game and anticipating transitions. But that's something I'm really strong on. I believe that will happen. We'll see. People think I'm crazy, but I don't know.
I would think if anyone's going to do it, Pep Guardiola will probably be the first to try that out, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, there are clubs and managers that are doing it. There are examples out there of clubs doing it. Funnily enough, MK Dons are doing it. They're definitely joining. Yeah, they're joining their goalkeeper in the build phase, and yeah, so it's happening. But I think it's like anything. If somebody starts doing it and having success, and you can create overloads, say for instance in the middle of the park or in wide areas, I think a lot more people will go, oh, hold on a minute, how do we do this? Coaches will get better at understanding it and then being able to deliver it. I think I'm at a stage now where, because I've been delivering it for so long at the FA, that I've got a reasonably good understanding of it, when to do it and how to do it and why to do it. And actually on my goalkeeping A license, I delivered one of my modules. I delivered a little walkthrough on a Subbuteo board, and yeah, it raised quite a few questions and a few eyebrows. But you got to try and be one step ahead. So hopefully that answers your question.
Libby, there's a couple of questions which align nicely to my questions. You're right if I jump in?
Yeah, if you can manage to get those ones in as well.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So Luke, I'm going to park yours for a second, come back to you. But Carl, a good friend of mine over in Dublin, Carl's asked, at what age do you decide or know when a player is definitely going to be a keeper at the grassroots level? Should they be pigeonholed at a young age or encouraged to play outfield as long as possible to be competent on the ball? Which aligns slightly to a question I had, Terry, which is, do you have any examples of goalkeepers you've worked with in the professional game who either have started very young, 5, 6, 7, or who have got into to goalkeeping very late? So it kind of aligns.
Yeah, so to answer that question, I think everyone's journey is different. Like, I didn't go in goal until I was 13 years old, but there are goalkeepers that have gone in goal at 6 years old and are now playing in the Premier League. So I think everyone's journey is different. What would I encourage? I like the idea of goalkeepers playing out on pitch, playing in goal, because I think the way as I mentioned earlier, the way the position's evolving, the way it's going, you have to be really good on the ball now if you want to play, certainly at academy level, international level, absolutely, and Premier League level. If you're playing for a team that that build and are possession based, then you need to be good at that. So yeah, I would definitely encourage it. And also, kids love playing football. They love going on pitch. They love playing in midfield. They love playing up front. So, or some don't. Some just want to go in goal. So it's very much unique to the individual. But what would I encourage? Yeah, go out on pitch. Like, and I think that we'll probably come on to it in a bit about designing your practices. If you're doing a passing practice, get the goalkeepers involved in it, because the amount of times they'll receive and play the ball in games is obviously quite a few. So yeah, involve them and encourage them to definitely do that and try it. Yeah, and also outfield players, try and goal.
I think I'm always asked this myself, Terry, and I talk a lot about the motivations of players and youngsters, and ultimately, if a young kid wants to be a goalie, who are we to stop them? If they get a pair of gloves for Christmas, they want to be a keeper. And similarly, if they don't want to be a keeper, then we can't really force them. So I think I share your feelings around it. Yeah, get them playing outfield, but ultimately it's up to them, isn't it?
Yeah, and everybody's journey is different, and every kid's different. Some never want to go in goal. I remember when I was a centre half, only playing for my local grassroots team, and the goalkeeper was off. And I was like, yeah, I'll play in goal. And never played in goal. I loved it. It was brilliant. Never looked back. I was just in goal. And, a lot of keepers do that. I mean, I did a Instagram live with Bentley, and I said to him, how did you start in goal? And he said, well, I was playing out on pitch. The goalkeeper was away on holiday. This is an incredible story, actually. If you don't know, he was playing for a local Sunday League team. I think he was under 13s, I think he said, around that age. Goalkeeper goes on holiday. They asked who wants to go in goal. Bentley put his hand up, went in goal. The day he went in goal, the Arsenal scout was there.
That's amazing.
Said, I like that keeper. He's good. They're like, it's the first time he's only in goal because the lad went on holiday, and that's how he got picked up by Arsenal.
Oh, what about the lad who went on holiday? He's heartbroken, wasn't he?
He's never
Harmed him. I think a similar thing happened with John Ruddy. I think the similar thing happened with John Ruddy, who went on to have a good career. And also, Terry, we were talking in the week on the phone, weren't we? Myself and actually Matt Murphy was on the call. We grew up with Mark Tyler. Mark went on to have an amazing career as a goalkeeper. But I remember him representing the county of Norfolk as an outfield player. He was a smart ass, really, because he could play in, goal, or out. I used to hate kids like that. Really.
Brilliant.
We've got a few questions coming out, which again are quite similar. So I'm going to ask one of mine, which links to, I think, Luke and possibly Rich. So Luke's asked, do you think goalkeepers should play outfield more, not just in training, but in games too? Sorry, Libby, I've stolen your thunder.
Go on.
Do you think that's the way to go in foundation phase, Terry, like playing matches?
Yeah, I think if you've got two keepers, rather than have a keeper who plays in goal and then the other one stands on the side, why not? You know, obviously numbers depending and things like that, how big your squad is and how big how big you 7-a-side, 9-a-side, whatever it might be, 11-a-side. But why not put one out on pitch for half a game and one in goal and swap it around? I think you just got to think outside the box. As I said, it depends on what they want to do. Depends on what the parents want them to do as well, because parents obviously at that age when they're young have got a big say in things. But just work together, come up with a solution that works for everybody. And ideally, you don't really want people standing on the side, do you? You know, you want people involved. You want people playing, whether that's on pitch or in goal. So if you can achieve that, and as I said, the majority of boys that come to my academy, the way the sessions are designed for them, they're very much game realistic sessions. So they're either in goal, defending the goal, or they're finishing, or they're defending, and they're mixing it around and they're taking turns. So, and they seem to love it. So yeah, I mean they love playing football, don't they? So
yeah.
I think as they get older, you can start to specialise a little bit more, but certainly at the younger age groups, then I would say just encourage them to try everything.
Cool.
And whilst we're on that training, like what you do, like session plan wise, there's a good question here. Like when planning your sessions, do you have a syllabus that you work to, or does it just change each week depending on how the goalkeepers perform from game to game?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it depends on what age you're working with, what level you're working with. So is it a grassroots goalie or a professional keeper? Is it in the academy or is it at my academy? When I say in the academy, Southend United, Peterborough United, it's different. So at the pro level, I would work to a syllabus. It'd be a weekly syllabus. So for instance, it might be a Monday defending the goal, which would be called shot stopping. A Tuesday defending the area, which might be dealing with crosses, dealing with high balls. A Thursday might be an in possession practice. So it might be supporting, receiving and distribution. And then on Friday, it'll be looking at the opposition on a Saturday and making sure you're honing your session in based on what the team are doing on a Saturday. So that'll be first team level. You'd have a rough idea, but also at the same time, if the game on a Saturday, the keeper struggled with a certain area or felt like he wanted to do more on a certain area, then you can factor that into the syllabus or the week. But also as well, the challenges at pro level, you might have an 18-year-old who's a third choice and a 35-year-old that's first choice. And again, it's making sure they're all being challenged as well. So there's so many different factors that come into it at that level, and also at academy level as well. You've got to make sure that, I always think that your goalkeeping syllabus is in line with the outfield syllabus. So there's no good the goalkeeper's working on dealing with crosses if the outfield session is building from the back. It's got to be in line for me, and that's our responsibility as goalkeeping coaches to work with the head of coaching at the academy and the coaching staff at the academy to make sure you're working in line with what they're doing, really.
Good question, Rich.
Yeah, difficult one to answer because there's so many. Like, are you talking at grassroots, professional, development phase, elite level, international level?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways of designing what you're going to do.
I think
based on the age and the ability.
With my coach Ed hat on, I think, and I know Rich, and I think he works with the goalkeepers at Cambridge Town, and I think there's at any level there has to be value in having a loose syllabus. Al, wouldn't you suggest that? Because we say that with outfield players, if you're always just coaching from games, it's very reactive. So I would suggest that what you just reeled off then, Tal, I would suggest that's a good syllabus in itself. You know, actually, what was it? Protecting the goal, protecting the area, etc. So I think something like that would be good for coaches.
Yeah, I think you've got to find a balance, haven't you? Because people tend to coach what they enjoy and what they're good at and what they've got experience at, but that might not be the best thing for the group of keepers. So you've got two things. You've got to make sure you're developing the group, make sure that you're challenging the group in all different areas, but you're also got to challenge the individual on their areas, whether it's a strength they want to get better at or an area of focus they need to improve on. So it's a constant juggling act. But yeah, you need a bare bones of a syllabus, but I wouldn't be too rigid with that either. I think there's definitely room and scope for you to feel it and sense what they need and adapt things in accordance to that.
Brilliant, thanks.
Good. Question from George. Do you think enough is being done to develop the female goalkeeper at Grassroots?
Yeah, do you know what? I've had more and more girls joining the academy because I open it up to boys and girls. I would say 10 years ago, probably had one or two. Now I'd say every group I have, definitely have 3 or 4 goalkeepers that are female, which is great to see. And yeah, they're excellent. They're really good. And as I was saying earlier, I've actually had the pleasure of working with England under-19 women and seeing the standard that they were producing in training and in games, internal games, was excellent. So they've only got there by having some sort of development pathway. So it's getting better. I've actually thought about maybe doing a girls only session, but they can, as long as it's safe. There's no reason why they can't join in with the boys, and they are, and they seem to be at a really high level. And there seems to be more and more that are interested in it as well, which is great to see. And I think the England women have had a big impact on that with their success at recent tournaments. I'm lucky actually because Mark Mason, who was the senior women's goalkeeping coach at the FA, I'm good friends with him. So he tells me a lot about the women's game, and the level of professionalism is fantastic, isn't it? It's great. They're inspiring the next generation, really, and there's only going to be more and more, young girls interested in being a keeper, which is good.
Brilliant. Libby, I'm going to ask Gary's question. It links to something I'm going to ask. So Gary Piggott has asked Terry, so off the back of what you've just said regarding building from the back, what implications does this have for training? And that was similar to, I was going to say a lot of people listening tonight live and obviously on the recording will be grassroots coaches who work with the squad of players, let's say 14 outfield and 1 goalkeeper. And like we say on court, we want to avoid just getting rid of the keeper to one of the dads who wax balls at them and incorporate them to squad practices. So we spoke about this earlier, Gary. So yeah, I've put your article up on the screen. Can you see that, Libby? Can you see the website? Good.
I can.
And I'll put the link in the chat box actually, because people can have a good look at it. But you're right to talk us through some of these, Tal.
Yeah. So the session, are you talking about the session here? Yeah. So this is, I think goalkeeping coaching has definitely developed in terms of making sure there's a realism to what the keepers are doing. And as I said to Steve earlier on today, I think the goalkeeping practices that certainly the ones that I'm delivering and the staff that work alongside me are delivering look more like an outfield session, because the demands on the keeper are so different now to what they used to be. You can still be a goalkeeper that's just very good out of possession, that makes really good saves, that can, at an older age group, take crosses. But if you really want to develop the all-round keeper, for me, they have to be just as good as the outfield players on pitch as well. So involving the goalkeepers in the outfield practices rather than sending them off with, as you said there, with one of the dads, I think is probably more real to the game anyway, and they'll benefit from that. I'm not saying they shouldn't have any specialist work, because it is a specialist position, but you know, if you haven't got a goalkeeping coach, or you haven't got, you know, the area and the facility and things like that, which we've all worked under them constraints before, you know, put the goalkeeper in the practice in a relative position. So what's the difference in possession of a keeper playing in goal or a sitting centre mid? The majority of the games in front of a sitting centre mid, they're receiving it one side, they're playing out the other, they're getting loads of touches on the ball. So I think it goes down to the way that the session is designed, and how you can incorporate the goalkeeper. But I think I said to Steve last week, goalkeeping coaches are guilty, because probably when I first started, the goalkeeping coach would take the goalkeepers off. I'm taking the keepers off. And you separate them from the rest of the group. And then all of a sudden now, 20 years later, we're knocking on the door saying, actually, in order for them to be really good, we need them to be in your practices. We can do some stuff in isolation that's game realistic, but ultimately you're spending loads of time with them. How can we plan the session together and come up with something that looks real to a game and paints that picture for them? So if you do see these practices, that's very similar to an outfield practice. But yeah, absolutely get them involved in the squad training for sure.
I've always, rightly or wrongly, hopefully rightly, I've always used the target game. So you know you got target either end, and you're trying to get it from end to end. And so I'm just thinking, well, the target player is receiving a pass and usually playing it switching play. Yeah, so that's what a goalkeeper spends a lot of time doing. It's very rarely is there anyone behind the goalkeeper at the moment, is there? So you know, they can see the whole pitch. So that's what I tend to do, and it seems to keep the goalkeepers part of the team.
Yeah, you can do it that way, or you can, if you're doing, say, a passing pattern, the passing pattern might lead with a 1v1 or a shot from the player, and the keeper has a save to make. Or one thing I like to have an input with the outfield coaches at the FA, and I say to them, how does the practice start? You know, so many times you see a practice and it'll start on the halfway line with the coach. The coach feeds it into the midfield and they play live. We'll start with a goalie. Why not start with a keeper who drives out to the edge of the box, clips the ball into the centre mid, then we play live? By the end of the practice, the goalkeeper's had probably 25 or 30 mid-range passes or different types of passes. That frees up the coach to walk around and interact a little bit more, because he hasn't got to start the practice every time. Or she hasn't got to start the practice every time. So it's just thinking a little bit differently sometimes. But I do think the goalkeeping world is guilty of isolating the keepers. I'll probably get a bit of stick from the goalkeeping world on that. But now we're, as I said, we're knocking on the door saying, how can we work together? And I'm lucky at the FA, because they all want the goalkeepers within the practice. So we design the practice together. So I'll go out early. I'll do an extended warm-up, game realistic practice with the keepers. Tends to be in and out of possession, but we will shine a light on one particular area. And then as soon as the outfield players come out, boom, the goalkeepers are straight in with a keep ball. Because I think socially it's really important as well. They need to be with a squad. You know, there's nothing worse than seeing a group of players. The goalkeepers are one end of the pitch, the outfield players are the other. And it's like, hold on, you're part of the team. And it's cheesy, but it's a part of the team, not apart from the team. I think that's really important. So
has that changed at the top level? Has that changed, or is it still? Are they still isolated at the top level? Because it wasn't long ago I went to a training ground for a visit. I mean, it's a few years ago, but the squad were practicing and the goalkeepers were over there. Has it changed?
I think it's changing. I think at some clubs it's definitely changed. At some other clubs, goalkeeping coaches are creatures of habit as much as anyone else. If they've been doing something for 10 years, they're probably going to carry on doing it.
Yeah.
But actually, I would say probably one of my biggest skills is constantly questioning myself. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this? Why am I taking the goalies out early? Is this beneficial? Yeah, it is beneficial. Okay, so let's do this. Why are they going back in with the team early? Well, socially, that's really important. They need to build relationships with people. Also, they need to be really good technically on the ball as well and have a real good tactical understanding. So there has to be a thought process behind it. And sometimes the head coach might say, well, listen, what we're doing, we're not really involving a keeper here. So it's more beneficial they spend time with you. And that's fine, as long as when they're with me, and this goes all the way back to your kind of practice design, what I'm designing has to be game realistic. So am I painting the correct pictures? You know, we could talk for a whole hour just on that alone, but I'm constantly sort of, asking the question to myself is like, does this look like the game? Does the service look like the game? Am I telling them what's coming? You know, the amount of times you'll watch a goalkeeping session and you'll hear them say, and I'm guilty of it now, and I'm certainly was guilty of it in the past, of saying, right, you're going to stand here, you're going to receive this type of service, then you're going to move here, then you're going to receive this type of service, then you're going to stand here and receive this. They can go into autopilot if they're a decent keeper. They know what's coming. They don't know what's coming in the game. You don't know what Mo Salah's going to do. So you've got to be a little bit looser with your practice design, but make it realistic. So one thing I try and do on that is, say, for instance, I'll say to the keeper, right, are you ready to defend the goal? And there might be 3 options. So I might shift out my feet and hit it. I might play a 1-2 with someone else in the box, or I might slide the ball through for someone else to go 1v1. So I'm constantly keeping them guessing, painting those realistic pictures. As I said, you can talk for hours on that alone, but my point is, when they do work in isolation, is it realistic? Yes, okay, great. Then when they do go in with a squad, hopefully you've prepared them for that, and then ultimately prepared them for the game as well.
Right.
Who's your favourite goalkeeper, Tal, in the modern game?
Yeah, I obviously I've got a bias to English keepers, having worked with pretty much all of the keepers under 21s and down in the system.
Right.
So I always follow those really closely and watch them. I really enjoy watching goalies. It's my bias. I really enjoy watching goalkeepers that are absolutely brilliant at making saves and defending the goal, but also brilliant in possession as well. So like show a really good range of passing. So yeah, Alisson, although he had a blip the other night, and Ederson, the 2 Brazilian keepers, just fantastic. How calm they are, how composed 99% of the time they are. So yeah, I love watching that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, talking about Alisson's actually, Luke's got a great question here. How do you include psychosocial development for the goalkeepers in practices? Because of the position, it is likely, like Alisson at the weekend, that mistakes can be made that lead to a goal. What skills and strategies do you help the goalkeepers to develop in that area?
That's a brilliant question. I was chatting to someone the other day about this, and you know, when you talk about psychology, people used to think, oh, you know, it's an hour on a Thursday afternoon when you see the psychologist, but it's not that for me. It is every interaction you have with them. So for me, I really like to try and take the pressure off the keepers I work with. So I really want them to express themselves. I really want them to try things. And when it doesn't go right, that's fine. That's okay, because you're only going to get better. You're only going to improve if you're trying things and you're taking yourself out of your comfort zone. And obviously, as they get closer to the first team, there is a pressure on the manager to get results. So, you know, you can't be saying to your goalkeeper, look, dribble out, take on the centre forward and play into midfield. But I think as they're younger, just try things. Like Schmeichel came along and completely evolved the position by making block and spread saves. Before that, there was probably keepers out there, I wasn't aware of them, but he changed that by doing that. He took that from handball, didn't he, and implement that into his game. And the only way we're really going to push the boundaries of how the goalkeeper supports the team, the type of passes a goalkeeper plays in possession, the way he defends the goal, just by trying things. And it's okay to get it wrong. It doesn't matter. I mean, if I was Alisson's goalkeeping coach, I'd say to him, listen, you've been incredible, the best goalkeeper in the world. You've got that trophy at home. Don't worry. You know, you'll be fine. Do it again. Do exactly the same thing again. And guess what? It'll probably come off. You know, and that's fine. You know, I remember watching a goalkeeper who was interviewed, Tom Heaton.
Yeah.
So Tom Heaton did a Q&A with the England keepers. And one of the young England goalkeepers said to him, "Oh, how do you deal with pressure? You're playing in the Premier League." He was playing for Burnley at the time. "How do you deal with pressure and the fear of making mistakes?" And he said to the group, he was like, "Oh, that's funny, because when I was younger, I used to really struggle with that. I'd always be really afraid to make a mistake." And he said, in the end, he said, "Right, what is the worst thing that can happen today? Okay, we lose 1-0 and I let the ball through my legs or through my hands and we lose 1-0. Right, if that happens, can I deal with that?" And he was like, "Yeah, I can deal with that." So he then went into the rest of his games after that and said, "Right, I know I can deal with worst case scenario. I can deal with that. That's fine. I don't want it to happen, but I can deal with it." And then he shifted his mindset to sort of say, "Well, look, I can deal with worst case scenarios. So I'm just going to go out and express myself." It definitely holds people back in every walk of life, not just goalkeeping. But if you're afraid to speak up or afraid to make mistakes, you're always going to be in your comfort zone, aren't you? And that's one bit of advice I'd give to any coaches watching this. Try things. I go now and work for the FA. I'm still trying things. I'll say to the boys, "Right, I'm going to try this today. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I've never done it before, but let's see. This isn't working. Let's adapt this a little bit." And I'll try things because I want to go there and enjoy it. I want to put myself out of my comfort zone. I could do a session that I know I've done 50 times, and I'd walk away going, "Oh yeah, that's good. That was good today." Well, was it really? Yeah, maybe. But you just get bored, don't you?
I'm guilty of that as a coach educator. The number of times I've thought to myself, "Right, I'm going to try something different," and then I plan something different, and then I get onto the grass and I think, "I'll just play safe today. I'll do the one that I know I can do. I've done it loads of times," because there's a bit of an audience. So we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, and we're talking about sort of young goalkeepers, 10 or 11 years old. The last thing you want them to have is that mindset. You know, I'm only going to play that pass because I'm good at that pass. I'm not very good at that one into midfield, so I'm not going to play that. You know, we've got to be the ones that say, "Hold on a minute, whoa, just play it. Who cares? It goes to them. Be good at dealing with 1v1s. Don't worry." So, yeah. De-escalate and normalize was the point that I was told once by a psychologist.
What does that mean?
De-escalate the situation and normalize. So, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's normal. You're going to make mistakes. Get on with it. It's fine. And yeah,
like it.
Seems to work.
Livs, any questions in the chat? Because I've got one more.
It says 7 on the Q&A there. We better get through there.
Oh, we've had most of them, Terry.
We've actually managed
that's right.
most of those. There's one we haven't. In a goalkeeping group session, would you do a small-sided game to develop confidence on the ball?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, small-sided game. Yeah, why not? Brilliant. As long as they're getting loads of time on pitch, loads of time in goal, the rotations are at the right times, trying not to stop the practice unless you need to. But yeah, great, because they're going to be in goal and receiving loads of passes, loads of ball touches. And then when they're out on pitch as well, they can develop their understanding of the person behind them. And then when they're on pitch, they can understand the importance of the communication behind them as well. So yeah, loads of benefits of that. And it looks like the game, doesn't it? A small-sided game. Loads of touches, loads of saves, loads of in possession, loads of out of possession. What you can see there on your screen is a small-sided game, but just 2 small-sided games going across each other with 4 keepers in and a keeper in the middle. So yeah, why not? Loads of that. Yeah, I think. Yeah, there's and also with that type of thing is you're not getting prescriptive movements. A small-sided game, you're having so many different situations to deal with, whether it's a 1v1, a block save, a reaction save, all different types. And you can adapt the practice slightly to hit certain areas where it might be, rather than play to, say, if you're looking at that example there, the keeper nearest to us, rather than play to the 2 side goals, you might get him to clip it to the opposite goal. So you're testing that kind of mid-range pass into midfield. But yeah, just develop it however you see fit. And as I said, just try stuff. Why not?
Terry, I'm as someone who doesn't coach as much as I used to, more sort of development coach educator. But my experience of coaching now is to help out my son's team, who are under 8s, 9s, and then coaching a ladies' team, performance team. We're trying to get 3 points, and I find it really difficult to change hats, if you like. I thought I'd get that pun in there for you, Libby, the hats. And I find it hard. I sometimes think I want to help that. I want to coach that 9-year-old, that 8-year-old, whereas they might not want helping. How do you? I'm intrigued to know how you manage that. Whereby one day you could be working with England's under 18 goalkeeper, and the next day you could be working with a group of boys and girls who just want to come and have a bit of fun. How do you manage that?
Great question, Steve.
Thanks,
yeah,
David.
do you know what? I think the answer to that is I've said this before to people, and I'm not sure if they even believe me, but I honestly love coaching, whether it is an international 18s keeper or whether it's Sunday League grassroots level. I love coaching. Obviously, the challenge is different. You have to have an expectation of their knowledge and their understanding. You know, I can't go too in depth with an 8-year-old grassroots goalkeeper like I can tactically with an England 18s keeper. But the fundamentals are the same. They want to enjoy it. You know, they want to have fun. Whether you're working with a 35-year-old goalkeeper. So when I was at Southend, I worked with a guy called Paul Smith, who he played hundreds of games, played in the Premier League. Whether you're working with him or an 8-year-old grassroots goalkeeper, trust me, they want to enjoy what they're doing. They want to have a relationship with their coach where they don't feel like they're under pressure, where they're just enjoying themselves. They want to feel supported. So I think for me, there are more similarities than there are differences. Yeah, the tactical side of it. Yeah, you know, the speed of the game, the opposition, of course, all those things. I'm not going to say they don't exist, but ultimately the relationships are still the same. You're still human being to human being, whether they're an exceptional goalkeeper or a grassroots keeper. They still want to really enjoy what they do. They still want to have a voice. And that's one thing, if anybody watches that boot room session, I made a conscious effort to give them time within the session to have an opinion. Because I think that's really important as well. The amount of times you watch a coach and the coach is the only voice you hear on the pitch. So I always ask a trick question to the kid, not always, but at time to time, I'll ask a trick question to the players. I say to them, right, this is my training session. Whose voice do you want to hear? Should you be hearing? They'll go, yours. And I go, what? Why mine? My voice. Let's hear your voice. So like, give them an opportunity to, what do you think of that? Yeah, it was a good save, that was. Yeah, it was really good. Right, what do you think you can do even better there next time? They might need a little bit of help, especially if they're a young keeper at grassroots level. But if you give them an opinion, I think that then breeds confidence. And yeah, just try it.
So the hats you wear are not very different, really. You're still. If we came to see you work with grassroots players, we'd see the same Terry Mason that we would pretty much work with internationals.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, brilliant. As I said, there's more similarities than there are differences. But at the same time, I think you just have to have an expectation of roughly their ability level as well. Yeah. You know, if I'm fizzing a ball into an 8-year-old grassroots keeper and saying, right, I want you to touch it with your left foot and ping it 25 yards with your right foot, and then I want you to go and support the fullback and clip it into the number 10's chest, that's totally unrealistic. That's not going to happen. So you have to understand where they're at, make sure you're challenging them and testing them, but not pushing it so far that it's unrealistic. So yeah, advice to you would be, when you go, what level are they at? What's their understanding like? And yeah, just are they enjoying it? And just, but yeah, there's a lot of similarities in my opinion. Yeah. Hopefully you would see the same coach. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's 8 o'clock and I feel like these webinars go so quick. But yeah, thanks so much. And, you know, great questions, guys, and fantastic answers. So yeah, thanks so much, Terry. That's been super helpful.
Thanks,
Tel. As a coach anyway. So yeah. No,
thank you for taking your time out, guys. It's yeah, you're on here because you want to get better. So fair play to you. It would have been easy to watch, would you say, Steve, the Bournemouth game? But yeah, hopefully by being on there, you've picked up 1 or 2 little bits. But yeah, just to conclude from my point of view, is like, I'm humble enough to know there's a lot more that I need to learn and get better at. You know, just because I work for the FA and England and stuff like that, I know that I need to get better. there's loads of areas I want to improve on and get better on, but that's why I love doing what I do. That's why I first started out and wanted to be a coach in the first place. So, you know, it's but yeah, try things, you know, almost like, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. Yeah, so what? You know, adapt it. You'll be better next time. So just try stuff. But I don't know if it was you, Steve. Someone said to me the other day, I think it was you, Steve, actually.
Go on, what did I
He
say?
said, imagine going into a classroom and they had to share one pen.
No, it wasn't me.
Did you say that to me? Okay,
No, I've
so
heard that
someone said,
analogy. I've heard it. I've heard
yeah,
it.
and that's no different from goalkeeping coaching or outfield coaching. You give them loads of goes, give them loads of touches. Make sure they're always involved. They're either the ones taking the shots or delivering the crosses or doing the combination play, or they're in goal defending the goal. They're always involved, getting loads of touches. Yeah, just go with it.
Brilliant.
Thanks, mate.
Class.
No worries.
Again, guys, the recording will come out in the next few days. Make sure you download it straight away, so then it won't expire. And then we'll see you on the next webinar, which is Thursday, I believe.
Thursday with Matty Gill.
Matty Gill.
From playing to coaching.
Good stuff. See you then, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Libs. Thanks, Terry.
No worries. Thanks,
Pal.
guys. See you later.
Ciao.